Welcome to Chillix Recap Studio. Today, we're diving into a 2022 romantic comedy film. Spoiler alert. Now, sit back, chill, and relax. Johnny is a charming, successful middle-aged businessman with a reputation for being a ladies' man. Johnny is shown in his element, using his smooth-talking skills and good looks to woo women, switching from one brief affair to another without any intention of forming a real connection. His life is all about the thrill of the chase, and he has become an expert in telling women exactly what they want to hear. Johnny's carefree lifestyle is interrupted by the death of his mother. He returns to his hometown for the funeral. Initially, he entered the wrong funeral ceremony due to his tardiness. However, he later excused himself and attended the correct one, where he reconnected with his family-oriented twin brother, who stands in stark contrast to Johnny's frivolous activities. After the funeral, Johnny meets Alessia, a kind-hearted neighbor at his mother's place. In a casual conversation, Alessia mistakes him for a handicapped person. Like many of the lies he tells, this one seems innocent enough and is delivered with ease. But fate has other plans. Later on, under the guise of being disabled, Johnny visits Alessia at her family's rural home and meets Chiara, a stunning young woman who uses a wheelchair. Even though it seems like he has been set up, Johnny, ever the opportunist, chooses to maintain his facade and act as though he is also disabled. He meets his friends the next day and they challenge him that even he will find it difficult. He places a bet with them that he will sleep with her. As usual, Johnny does not seem to value his twin's opinion. His brother confronts Johnny after his encounter with Alessia, knowing full well that Johnny has a history of dishonesty. He drove off instead after making fun of his baldness. What Johnny doesn't anticipate is that Chiara is not like the other women he has pursued. She is vibrant, full of life, and unflinchingly optimistic despite the challenges she faces. As Johnny spends more time with her, he finds himself drawn to her in ways that are unfamiliar and unsettling. Johnny experienced a range of emotions while watching her play tennis. She played incredibly well and ultimately prevailed. After the game, he was pissed at his secretary for getting him a bad wheelchair. He jumped on another wheelchair when he sensed that Chiara was near, unknown to him that the wheelchair belonged to her. Chiara's genuine nature and zest for life start to penetrate the emotional barriers Johnny has built around himself. Contrary to his secretary's opinion, who is very unsupportive of what he is doing, especially considering Chiara's condition, Johnny tasks her to get him a ticket to a classical show Chiara is performing in as the lead violinist. He borrows a wheelchair from a man in the street and goes ahead to watch the show. He watches her play so impressively, and he didn't know when he stood off of the wheelchair to applaud her after the show, which was shocking to the woman who was sitting next to him. After the show, they went on a date that was going well before Johnny's automatic wheelchair started causing him to embarrass himself by almost ruining other people's dinner. They decided to go to her hotel after dinner. They could not fit in the elevator at the same time due to their wheelchairs, so he waited at the elevator after asking her room number so he could follow. The receptionist gave him a weird wink, indicating that he knows what Johnny is up to, which made him uncomfortable. He soon joined her at the doorstep leading to her room, where they both shared a moment. They were kissing, and Chiara seems to be enjoying it until Johnny attempts to reach under her gown. She stops him because it does not sit well with her. Johnny's reaction shows he's a little disappointed he isn't getting what he's there for, but there's nothing he could do about that, so he takes his leave. Soon after, he extends an invitation to her to visit his home, where Chiara finds it relatively easy to navigate while Johnny finds it difficult. They had a nice dinner, and Chiara asked about his accident. He had a funny way of making up inconsistent stories that Chiara found amusing. She shared her own story too. Instead of knowing how to respond, Johnny uses a remote to control water to flood the room. It didn't take long before they were in a pool of water. They got intimate and made love affectionately in the water. In the following scene, Johnny snapped a picture of them together as a prize to brag to his friends about, thus winning the bet they placed earlier. Her call came through, but he didn't answer it. Johnny's secretary pressures him later to do right by her and tell her the truth, but he didn't pay attention to it. He soon calls her sometimes later while he is jogging, but Chiara told him he sounds as if he is walking. He quickly found a place to sit and refuted that. They planned to meet later. He went to meet her after, and he got to see her play violin while she scored a new song. He wanted to tell her truth, but when she was about to turn to look at him, he quickly sat back on his chair. They later kissed and made plans for dinner. His friends were not happy with him as they followed him to the date. They threatened to tell Chiara the truth if he wasn't going to. At the karaoke, his secretary got on the stage and sang her favorite song. She even threw her jacket at Johnny while having a lot of fun. Johnny's friends urged him to tell her the truth while they were dining, but he does not seem prepared to do so. His friend wanted to spill the truth, but Johnny intentionally spilled what he was having on his body so as to avoid the situation developing. Fortunately for him, it worked. It appears that Alessia and Johnny's twin brother are dating after Johnny's twin brother is spotted entering her apartment. The next scene shows Alessia advancing on Johnny with aggression. She slapped him on sight, clearly furious that he had taken advantage of her sister. Johnny begged her to tell Chiara on his behalf, saying he is too scared to tell her directly. Alessia stormed out of there disappointed. Johnny proceeded to look for his father, who seemed to be enjoying himself greatly, akin to a father and son. He asked him for advice on how to go about it. Johnny's father told him he's clearly in love, but he rebuffed it. While they were talking, they heard someone talk about Lourdes in France, where miracles happen. Chiara is obviously in love, so she just kept talking positively about Johnny, even though Alessia was trying to convince her that he was not the right man for her by not mentioning that he could walk. Alessia persisted, and eventually Chiara acknowledged that she knew Johnny was not disabled. Upon hearing this, Alessia was taken aback and wondered why, despite knowing she was still with him. Normal people desire lasting love, but Chiara said she just hopes for it to happen. For this reason, she wants to savor it while it lasts, and she was able to deduce that he is not disabled because she is. While they were having that conversation, Johnny called and asked her to come to Lourdes with him. She happily accepted. When Alessia asked her after the call what she would do if he later told her the truth, she replied that she would leave him. The attendant listening in on their conversation starts crying. The bus ride to Lourdes was quite uncomfortable for Johnny's secretary. Once they arrived, the Reverend called Johnny inside. He said he knows he's not a cripple, that even though he is not disabled and that miracles do not often occur there, the people there have faith, and that by acting like he is mocking their faith. He also said that he should realize that if he decides to get out of his wheelchair, that people will take pictures of him and call it a miracle. Johnny chose to go out in his wheelchair because he felt terrible about being insensitive, shocking Chiara and his friends alike. Later that day, Chiara avoided talking to Johnny as she made her way to the bus. Just as the truck was about to hit her, Johnny intervened to save her. When she turned to see Johnny standing, she initially went along with it and said that it was a miracle that he was walking, but deep down she is really disappointed in him. She then got on the bus, and Johnny's friends were also upset with him and refused to let him go with them, leaving him behind. He was able to find his way back on his own. In an attempt to win his secretary over, Johnny gives her a collection of her favorite old records, including the one she sang at the karaoke, but she informs him that she is leaving and has already sent him a mail. During a presentation, Johnny thanked his staff members for their efforts and expressed appreciation for one employee whose idea he had previously disapproved of. Since it was her idea in the first place, he gave her the presentation. He fled to the countryside to look for Chiara at her family home. There, he encountered the grandmother, who at first was very irate with him but eventually gave him directions to find her. His luxury car caught up with her as he drove quickly, and when he passed her bus and crossed it, it came to an abrupt halt. He went into the bus and made an attempt to apologize to Chiara. She told him she did not want to see him anymore and that he had broken her heart. She also expressed her disappointment in him. She then asked the driver to move the bus. Johnny had no option but to get off the bus and head in his own direction. Johnny kept up his morning jogging routine, pushing himself to the point where he nearly passed out and collapsed onto his knees. Moving toward him in her wheelchair, Chiara pretended to be in the neighborhood, a frequent joke between them, and told him she was ready to start over with him after forgiving him. Johnny was ecstatic about this. She offered to carry him, and he accepted. The two of them then set off happily toward the road's end. Following that, we witnessed Johnny celebrate his 50th birthday with his loved ones, Alessia with his twin brother, his father, Chiara's grandmother, his secretary, his close friend, and everyone else happy together. Johnny carried Chiara and danced with her until everyone's gone and it's just them. That's it for this recap. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more videos like this. Thanks for watching.